It's a jam-packed show today at Locked On UCLA. Let's look into the future. What will we think about UCLA's class of 23 a year or two from now? And a price to pay for UCLA bringing in D'Anton Lynn, a big contract. We'll talk about all that on Locked On UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your episodes, and it's available on YouTube. So like, comment, and subscribe. Become an everydayer. That means tuning in whenever the show's posted. Get your subscriptions down. Hit that subscribe button. Thanks for the support. Where we're going to start today with all this bundle of energy. I know, UCLA basketball. What are we talking about today? Well, we're going to talk about ranking the class of 23, but not specifically ranking this year's class, because if you look at different rankings and different sites, it can go different, go here, there, every which way. The Bruins are still waiting for a Demara and looking for Berke Bouillon-Tunchel to come to UCLA officially, where they can update on the websites. But I was thinking, what if we look to the future? What if we think a year or two from now, when you re-rank classes, right? You go back, you see these articles a couple years down the line. NBA draft classes are re-ranked. Even college classes are re-ranked, where you look at 5 stars, 4 stars. Let's take a look at what UCLA's overall ranking is for this class of 23, basketball-wise, heading into this season. And technically, I'm going to use the 24/7 sports model. It's not up to date because the Bruins are still waiting on some guys to fill some spots officially. And this is where the Bruins currently sit. Number 1 in the country, you've got Kentucky, Duke. USC surprisingly up there at number 3 because of the Bronny James, the Isaiah Collier, top recruit in the country. Then you've got UConn, the defending champs, Michigan State, Louisville, trying to rebound from a poor last season, Iowa State, Ohio State, Oklahoma State, Alabama, Oregon, Baylor, and then UCLA. So the Bruins, who currently, based on this recording of this podcast on the 24/7 sports site, as basically as recently as mid-July, sit currently with their list of 5 commits. That doesn't even include Amara or a Bouillon-Tunchel. So currently, they're 13th. And I think they would maybe crack the top 10, depending on how they rate Bouillon-Tunchel and Mara overall. But let's think about this. You've got Kentucky that always brings in 4 or 5 stars. You got Duke, who's brought in the same. USC bringing quite the name brand recruit and the big-time recruit. UConn loading it up on the 4 stars. Michigan State, Louisville doing somewhat of the same. Bruins, the UCLA Bruins, aren't even the top team in their own conference, not in the top 2 in this year's recruiting class in a reloaded year. So if you think about it, if a dream scenario happens, of course the dream scenario for us as UCLA fans looking at these different things is ending in a national championship in a dream run, which makes Mick Cronin look like a genius. But if you add the Sebastian Max, the Brandon and Devin Williams of the world, you add in then Jan Vide, Ilan Fible, you've got Berke Bouillon-Tunchel, you bring in Lazar Stefanovic, who's technically counted in that transfer recruiting part, and then a Demara, who's supposed to be one of the most dynamic post-gets if the Bruins can get all that shored up before the season starts. And I think when in a year or two from now that the Bruins surpass expectations, all these youngsters play really well, whether it's for a year, 2, dare I say 3, then you've got guys who, if you got Vide, Fible, you've got all these different players coming in. It could be one of the best classes the Bruins have ever had and easily blow out proportions for this class of 23 ranking list heading into the list. I'm using 24/7 sports currently, but easily the Bruins, who don't have any 5 stars, they've got 4 stars. And I know we can have a debate back and forth as to what the ranking of the international guys coming in is, how accurate that is, who's wrong, who's right. Maybe it takes a year or 2 for these guys to develop, and maybe this ranking might get propped up based on how these players may or may not play in the next level, especially at the NBA level. But I'm thinking that this class of 23, you re-rank it a couple years down the line. I know there's a lot of question marks. It may not result in the most successful winning campaign, at least in the regular season for UCLA. But if things click, if you've got Bouillon-Tunchel who comes in and is basically a baby Jaime Jaquez. You've got Mara, who I've talked about with different articles, different reading, flirting as a potential lottery pick. Vide, who's been flashing great things in Europe. You've got Fible, who's coming in, flirting for a starting spot. If any of the Williams and Max develop in this season, overall, you could get guys who contribute this year, guys who contribute from years from now. This could be that springboard class that generates a lot of buzz for not just this season, but next season in the Big Ten or a year from now. If you got players still sticking around 2 or 3 years based on the NIL money getting thrown around, maybe the Bruins might cough some up by the time and cough more up when it comes to going to the Big Ten. I know Mick Cronin's not a big fan of that. That's a separate topic. But this could be one of those most exciting seasons, recruiting classes that we talk about years to come. I know there's a lot of unknowns. Even the Bruins with still a potential unfulfilled scholarship spot that they might not even go and get a grad transfer to fill. That could be all said and done despite what they've lost. The Final Four, a couple of Sweet 16s, guys in the NBA competing for NBA spots right now. And this is the class. A Cronin pivot, right? With Ivo Simovic gone, still bringing in all these guys. Cronin is the head man going internationally. Imagine what this could do for the game of college basketball in the pivot of, hey, as much as NIL is important, what happens if you go to older, maybe more mature guys playing in these European leagues, these professional leagues where their contracts are structured to where they can leave, although Mara's battling Zaragoza right now, to come to college and play and then do that one and done, if not 2 years, to go to the NBA jump and showcase their talents in front of a U.S. audience. I think the Bruins, if you look, let's take a look at this Kentucky crowd, right? This is what Kentucky's bringing in. Justin Edwards, Aaron Bradshaw, DJ Wagner, Rob Dillingham, and Reed Shepherd. You've got 3 5-stars right off the bat, bang, 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 6'7" small forward, a 7-foot center. You've got DJ Wagner. They're trying to replace Oscar Tshiebwe and get back to prominence because they've kind of fallen off these last couple of years. Those are some good high-name guys. They've got a lot of stars, a lot of props. They got some good stuff coming in. But UCLA has all this unknown factor, right? You go back. Let's take a look at USC real quick before we wrap up this first segment in terms of their 4 commits. That puts them near the top of the list. You've got Collier. You've got Page from Marietta, Georgia. Brandon Gardner, who also played at where? Christ the King. That name sound familiar? That's Brandon Williams, where he came from. He's a 3-star. And then Bronny James, who we don't know how good or bad he may be because he has the name value and the local value. He's a 4-star guy that could do big things for USC. I'm not entirely sure how that'll play out. But just imagine how the Bruins are going to be with their 5, 6, 7 guys by the time the season rolls around for new commits, recruits. Lazar Stefanovic, a name I'm not even throwing out there when it comes to the transfer class, adding things and adding values as a starter or an elite starter, potential, or a good starter to come in and make some minutes happen immediately. Bruins, when we all sit back and think about this in a couple of years, page this moment, middle July, go a couple of years from now, because it's not like you have to wait in the NFL, wait for these guys to develop. Maybe in the NBA you still do, but if a couple of these guys go out, ball out in the NBA, a couple of these guys go out and get all Big Ten honors, right? There's some of these recruits who can go all Big Ten, all Pac-12 with the 7'2", 7'3" center. You've got a 6'9" baby Jaquez, V-Day. Oh, I'm just excited. Let's just think about that, how this could be arguably one of the better recruiting classes that we just don't know of yet. Let's think about that in the future. When we re-rank, when the Bruins could not only be maybe the 3rd team in the Pac-12 rankings at the time, they could maybe have the best team in the class of 23 with their freshmen coming in. Rambling, all that nonsense, we're done with that. We're going to take a look at D'Anton Lynn's contract. A lot of that's been released. You've seen maybe various UCLA sites, LA Times, even New Jersey papers are picking up what UCLA is paying D'Anton Lynn. And maybe you already know what it is, but it's still great to give some thoughts and some feedback of UCLA paying a hefty penny to get some assistants to come to Westwood and coach for UCLA heading to the Big Ten. Does that mean something going forward? We're going to talk about all that and more coming up next on Locked On UCLA. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you more about FanDuel, because FanDuel Sportsbook is the #1 sportsbook in America. If you're missing out on the opportunity right now to go take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel, I don't know what you're doing. Are the Angels going to trade Ohtani? Are they going to trade everything? Are the Cubs going to trade everybody? Are the Dodgers going to go grab everybody in the market? Or who's going to get the best record? Well, the Braves, the Rays, who's going to get those best World Series odds? As a big Dodger fan, I hope it goes towards LA, maybe put some money that way. Who knows? Go to FanDuel.com, get your first bet up to 10 times your first bet amount, win or lose, up to $200 in bonus bets. But you have to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now. Go check it out. If you're listening, FanDuel.com/lockedon. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that URL, type it in, and check out FanDuel.com/lockedon, an app that's super safe, secure, and easy to use. You get paid instantly. I know if you're putting in some World Series bets later down the line, right, you have to wait a little bit. But if it comes to who's going to hit a home run, who's going to do something that day, hey, you can just bet on Ohtani to hit a home run or throw a gem, and you're going to get some money paid to you really quick. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon right now to get up to $200 in bonus bets, and they're a big official partner of Major League Baseball. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Cruising on into segment 2 of the Locked On UCLA podcast. And the Bruins, hey, the football team, they're doing some big things. Chip Kelly with the big news, initially getting the Dante Moore. They had to fill a lot of different positions, coaching-wise, player-wise, shifting things around heading into this 2023 season. You might have seen me on Locked On Pac-12. How are the Bruins going to do this year? What's their success like? I was on another podcast, Locked On Pac-12, on Monday with Spencer McLaughlin. And it's going to come down for the Bruins this year to be successful based on, of course, who wins the quarterbacking job, how the positions, the skill positions play. Can the line block? Yes. Can Chip Kelly coach offense? Absolutely. But can the Bruins get any stops defensively? If they get any stops, we might see a very fun, energetic, good UCLA team that is very much a dark horse in what many are saying is a very easy schedule. Again, remember that word, easy schedule, easy Pac-12 schedule to end their last year in the conference. As Bill Walton would always say, conference of champions, to try and maybe sneak in a playoff bid in a great dream scenario, everything in between. That's not what we're debating. It's about the defense and the head man in D'Anton Lynn. Those contracts coming out in what has been reported by Ben Bolch and everybody saying D'Anton Lynn getting a $1.02 million salary. He's the first person in the defensive coordinator position in UCLA history to have his salary crack $1 million. I know there's inflation. I know there's a whole lot of other factors there, but the Bruins are going up even more money from the last couple of position coaches of the defensive coordinator position. Even going back to the Jim Mora era, they're paying a lot of money to bring in D'Anton Lynn, a guy that has no defensive coordinating experience. This is a guy who maybe a decade ago was trying to be an NFL player with the Jets, became an intern with the Jets, reading from the New Jersey site, NJ.com, and talked about how he had to grow. I know his dad's Anthony Lynn, so he's been able to see the game of football, a lot of that from afar, and even being in it during his time in the NFL at various stops, right? Whether it be the likes of defensive assistant roles with the Buffalo Bills in 15 to 16, doing so with the LA Chargers, being hired as an assistant DB's coach with the Texans, going as a secondaries coach in under Bill O'Brien with the Baltimore Ravens in 21, all those things, and things I might be leaving out as well. He's now the highest paid defensive coordinator in UCLA history, based on a little bit of some name value, what he's done in the NFL. And the Bruins, this is what they're going to be paying him. Overall, the Bruins will give him a 2-year contract, just over $1 million, with a lot of emphasis on some bonuses. If you're in the top 50 defensively in total defense, $25,000 bonus. Top 25 in total defense in the country, another $25K added on for that bonus. So a lot of incentives beyond just the incentive to make a bowl or a Pac-12 championship game or a New Year's Six bowl, a CFP appearance or a title game, everything in between. But this is a guy who, an undrafted free agent in April 2012, and now 11 years later, comes in and the Bruins are making him the highest paid assistant coach in the defensive coordinating position. My goodness. And I know there's a little bit more on who's getting paid for UCLA, but think about it. For somebody that hasn't had this much experience, at least in this position, in this role, the Bruins heading into the Big Ten understand how much it means. How many games last few years in the Chip Kelly era? Heck, even throw in the last year of Jim Mora, where the defense has just been absolutely gut-wrenching, whether it be in late in games, getting stops when they had plenty of offense to go around. And now here you are saying, hey, we are committing. They're giving hefty penny to all sorts of different guys, even to Ken Neomatalolo as the director of leadership, coming over as a new role kind of behind the scenes for UCLA. The Bruins, they can see with that Big Ten money, they're going to throw out some change. So even if D'Anton Lynn maybe doesn't work out, we hope it does. I think there's a lot of energy, a lot of youth in that defensive room, going behind tape and looking at film, getting recruits. You can see from beyond this year, the Bruins are going after a lot of defensive guys. Heck, even Ken Norton Jr., he's getting a big hefty pay. If he's on staff by December, if he's still on staff December 11th, his compensation for the year, Ken Norton Jr., is $620,000 after only making $250K only in his first year at UCLA. So the Bruins, they're showing, hey, we're moving to another conference. They're willing to bump up do a little salary bump there. So the Bruins they're committed. They're putting in the dollar amount. Now, does it work on the X's and O's, the recruiting, the intangibles with connecting to the players and making them not only good athletes, good student athletes, and building them for the future in the Big Ten? We can't say Chip Kelly's not connecting or trying, They're making their impact. They're shoving out the money. It's adding all up. The debt's going to decrease, and while everything else is going to be a hassle and an increase, the Bruins are doing their best. D'Anton Lynn with a big contract splash, that's a good payday for him, and we just got to be proud. Hey, the Bruins might actually throw a little bit more money football-wise, obviously, but they should and might show out a little more. I know USC's building new facilities. Well, the Bruins, is that the next thing that's going to come? Facilities. They're throwing out money to the coaches. Can they get more facilities? I know we've had that long debate about, will there be a new on-campus stadium? Where will they play? Are those things that happen in the future to update their facilities and fan game day experience for the UCLA fan, so it's not invaded by Big Ten newcomers coming over to Westwood if it's a new stadium, or to Pasadena? This is the start of something new, and seeing those hefty paydays, that's impressive. That's big time, as that's for somebody who doesn't have as much experience as guys in previous roles under Chip Kelly in that same position. I know I'm fired up. I'm fired up today. In the meantime, we got some updates about UCLA. Who's going to be playing in that exhibition tournament when they go overseas coming up pretty soon? Will they be in school in time? We got all that and more coming up next to wrap up Locked On UCLA. Thanks for stopping by Locked On UCLA. We're going to get a good one to end this one here on the Locked On UCLA podcast. The Bruins, well, they're going to go to a big overseas exhibition before the season starts, before school starts. The true quarter system starts. That starts late September. But the Bruins have to be enrolled in order to go to this tournament. And while there's two guys who are still officially waiting to make those words happen, the Bruins can't say anything officially. Getting the report, reading, listening to the Bro Report, they do a great job. The Bruins may be bringing some guys who are available that may not be official yet. Adai Mara battling that Zaragoza deal right now, might be able to get to UCLA in time for those early summer requirements to get in school. It's leaning that way only for him to turn around and go back home and play in his native country and be in an overseas trip back at home and playing in a UCLA uniform in an exhibition fashion, and then we can talk about all those things. That'd be great. So it's a possibility. It's looking good. And as I think the Bro Report also said, Berke Boyantrinchel, he is also looking good to be ready for UCLA and playing in that tournament as well. Jan Vide, the Bruins have him, but is he enrolled? Is that going to work? It's looking like he will be able to go. So this will be a big battle, right? Remember, Adem Bona is not going to be available for this upcoming set of games, which leaves the Williams available, the Max, all these youngsters who we hope are in school for this, summer session, this early August session, to play in these games, earn some minutes, get some actual game tape, even if it's not real November game tape, even if it's not a secret scrimmage while they're playing at San Diego State, who ironically ended up being a Final Four team last year, as national runner-up last year. Just playing games. We can get excited, see some game tape about these guys. That's coming up sooner than we think. And to see that these guys who were rumored and maybe, looking like they're going to be playing games in less than a month in UCLA uniforms against some hopefully pretty good competition in a various amount of spots in Spain. That'll be fun, especially the homecoming for the European players. Additionally, especially a bigger homecoming for a Daimara. We'd love to see some dunks, jams, everything in between with the post minutes available, and that should be a fun time for us as UCLA fans to reflect. So big thing is, will they have a full roster? No Bona, but there will be a lot of minutes being fulfilled and being won over, at least initially, before practice really grinds into gear heading into the fall quarter. And then when the season starts come November, that could even change one more time. But you talk about those off-season workouts. Well, they're still trying to get this team together, fill that assistant coaching spot who may or may not be filled by the time they get to Spain. I hope that should happen. That better happen sooner rather than later. And it's supposed to be a big international coaching help to Mick Cronin, who is now keying the international international recruiting with Ivo Simovic, now no longer a UCLA coach. A lot of things coming around, and it's starting to turn and mold into a picture, right? What is this idea of what we think is going to happen? It's a little fuzzy, but it's slowly turning a bit clearer for us to visualize and understand what this roster will look like. And maybe they'll win every game by 30. Maybe they get upset. Who knows? But it's still fun to get excited for what's to come. Football around the corner, quarterback battles, everything in between in less than a month. UCLA basketball, the month of August, will be absolutely fantastic, which is why when we go back to more of a full-time schedule, Monday through Friday, you want to become an everyday listener of the Locked On UCLA podcast. Hit the subscribe button. We thank you for your support. I thank you for listening, hating, loving, anything in between. I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, and as we do every time, Bruins fans, get your hands up. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.